Takar's knife really be an effective weapon?
It's been a long time, my friends, but I finally have the answer. That's right, past me and anybody else who's been watching me from the past 2 years. Buckle up and listen up, because finally we're answering the oldest question from the Chamber of the Wraith. And that question, for those who missed it, could Takar's knife really be an effective weapon? Welcome to the Chamber of the Wraith. My name is Brian, and in case you're wondering, this is an actual replica of Takar's knife. I actually picked it up a long time ago. Well, by a long time ago, I mean like over a year ago from EB Games, and this thing is sweet. And it got me to think of, how would you make this thing? And how deadly of a weapon would it actually be? Could it work in a Pleistocene world as an effective weapon? Well, today we're finding the answer to that question. But first, a little bit of background. For those not familiar with this game, Far Cry Primal is the most recently released of the Far Cry games, having come out in February of 2016. It follows protagonist Takar as he is trying to survive in the prehistoric wilderness of Urus, which is somewhere in Central Europe. Interestingly, a lot of these animals at the time are only known from areas outside of Central Europe, like the saber-toothed cats and such, but it's a video game, so we're gonna let things pass. What we're interested in was with what I stabbed that guy with earlier, Takar's knife. It's an effective dagger that is made from primitive materials in order to be tough enough to skin boars, like here, whereas it's also strong enough to be used as a defensive weapon, a means of taking down bad guys, whether they be man or beast, and they can even cut through the thick hide of a brown bear. So what is this blade exactly made out of? Now, on first inspection, you might think that this blade is pretty simple in design, and for modern standards, you're right. But if you're thinking back to 10,000 BC, this is a work of art right here. Sleek, functional, and it looks pretty cool. Right here, what's holding the two main components of the blade together is, according to the official Ubisoft website, mammoth leather. Although, to me, it kind of looks more like rawhide. We'll get into that in a moment. Right here, the handle of the jawbone, you can see, is made out of some sort of animal. It's actually most likely made from some kind of a wolf, as you can see here from this image of a wolf's lower jawbone. However, you'll notice this is kind of big, this is kind of small for a wolf, so it's either a young wolf or most likely part of it's been actually broken off in order to help fashion the handle of the blade in order to make it easier to handle. And the long stabby part of the blade, the killing end, is apparently made out of flint sharpened with pebbles, the traditional way, as it were. Now, even in this PVC model, I can see how this thing could potentially be a dangerous weapon, but flint? Really? That stuff is usually the shards of rock that have broken off. Can it really be tough enough to stab into enemies and skin animals? It can't be, right? Now, a lot of people think flint is just any odd-looking piece of rock that seems to have been hit off by a bigger rock using a harder rock, but flint, actually, geologically speaking, is a form of quartz. And quartz is actually a very tough material. On the most scale of hardness, quartz actually ranks at a 7 out of 10. 10, by the way, if you're wondering, is diamond. Now, usually the Mohs hardness test includes things like scratches, how easy it is to scratch something that is made out of flint. But flint is also a very, very sharp tool in and of itself. So sharp, in fact, that it's still used today in surgical blades, because not only can it cut through things easier than steel, flint generally tends to be more sterile than steel blades. And yes, I did say sharper than a steel blade. It's true, these things are incredibly sharp. It's actually a common sort of thing that it shares with obsidian, which is legendarily known for its sharpness. Volcanic glass, as it's also known, is one of the sharpest rocks known to mankind. Seriously. And actually, obsidian is fairly close to quartz in sort of how it is structured. And it would make perfect sense for a flint weapon to be as sharp as an obsidian weapon because it's basically the same thing. The only real difference, of course, being that obsidian is black and found in more volcanic regions, whereas quartz is thought of more as a typical crystal in color. And interestingly enough, Urus is volcanic. You can find large chunks of rock that are known as the blood of Urus, which are black and can be used to manufacture strong, very powerful weapons. That, my friends, is almost unequivocally obsidian at its core. And flint, again, being very similar to obsidian, being a kind of quartz, would make this a truly effective weapon. There's just one caveat, and that's with any weapon, it has a weakness. Flint, like obsidian, can be brittle. If I were to take this and strike it onto something hard enough, if it was actually flint, I could seriously damage this weapon and effectively make it useless after a couple of those. So hitting... Wow, that was a weird whistle. So hitting things hard, like bone, probably would irreversibly damage or even cause the blade to break off in someone. But if used on softer parts of the target, like the neck, the belly, or potentially even up here like in some of the kills, at least to some degree, this could get the job done. This could kill somebody in a flash. And again, as long as you don't use this, as long as you try not to hit bone with this thing, it should work just fine. You know, we commonly attribute the Stone Age with stupidity, but it's amazing what happens when you connect it, when you have a human brain and let them just smash rocks together for a few years and see what happens. You might get a weapon sharp enough to cut through you. I hope you enjoyed this very brief video, finally answering the question of Takar's knife's effectiveness. Now, if you would like to suggest more things for me to analyze, whether they be weapons or points and things, let me know. And in fact, in November, hopefully within the first couple of weeks of November, I actually have a very unique video involving the fighting game community and reaction times. So stay tuned, you guys are gonna love it. Especially since I actually managed to get some volunteers this time. Booyah! Science! I hope you enjoyed this video, and as always, don't forget to be awesome, and stay curious, my friends.
Uutta takar swadar, sustugistar, darwa, ulkaikaida. Winjara bandar, squarpeti qua sanguars. Mas urusuma. Magis guardians, wanan yaudan. Takar, jauha.